Hello, my name is Caitlin Wasserman, and today I will be talking to you about gladiatorial games and combat in ancient Rome.
To entertain! Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Today I will be talking about my rhetorical theory and my rhetorical question, the history of the games, the life of a gladiator, and specific motivations behind the games and why these games take place. And then at the end I will tie everything back together to answer my question. Today I will be applying the Toulmin method to the gladiatorial games to explain and support my claim. My claim today is that gladiatorial games played a very large role by bringing the population of Rome together as a whole society despite the motivations behind it. My reasoning is, by looking at specific events that occurred during the game day and the motivations behind them, one can see the significance of the games in the Roman lifestyle. When you think about Rome, or if you think about gladiatorial games, you automatically make the connection between the two, and it goes down in history as the ancient Rome gladiatorial games. My data today will be the research that I found during this project and the historical data that I also found. The Roman games were originally hosted in large open spaces with abundant seating. This was called the Roman Forum. Soon, they needed a more permanent structure to host the games. These were called amphitheaters. At first, the amphitheater was made out of wood, but accidents began to happen where the structures would fall in on their watchers and the gladiators, killing hundreds of people. They realized that concrete was the better material to make the amphitheaters out of. The oldest amphitheater was built in Pompeii in the 1st century CE, and it was able to seat 20,000 people. The grandest and most famous amphitheater, which you all should know, is the Colosseum, and it was also known as the Flavian Amphitheater. The first inaugural games were hosted in 80 CE. These are just a few of the game locations where you can find gladiatorial combat. The one on the left is, of course, the Colosseum, which all of you know. The one on the right with all of the grass is found in Pompeii, and this was one of their amphitheaters. The picture on the bottom is just to give you an idea of how the seating was structured. The name gladiator is based on the Roman sword called the gladius. The gladiator population is mostly made up of unfree individuals. These included condemned criminals, prisoners of war, and slaves. There were volunteer gladiators, but these included mostly freedmen and very low class of freeborn men. They choose to take on this status for the financial gain and for the honor and glory. Being a gladiator deems one infamous, which means you are beneath the law and are not a respectable man and is fit for an untimely death. It is rare to see upper class and women in the arena, but it has been seen, and most of the emperors would find themselves fighting the arena for enjoyment. The oath, which is said Sacramentum Gladiatorium, means, I will endure to be burned, to be bound, and to be beaten, and to be killed by the sword. This binds the man so he is considered no longer truly free, and they must take this before they become a gladiator. There were many different types of gladiators. The men were split into different categories depending on the type of armor they wore, the weapons they used, and the style of fighting they took on. They learned these different styles of fighting in training schools that were located usually around the amphitheater. Most of the men were confined to one category, while any given match included 2 to 3 different types of fighting. Below you'll find several different types of gladiators, and I'll let you read those to yourself because I know that I would say them wrong. These are a few of those types of gladiators. If you notice, a lot of them have different types of armor, protection, shields, and all different types of weaponry. Game day was split into 3 distinct time blocks: morning, lunch break, and afternoon. The morning consisted of a grand procession, which was normally led by the sponsor of the games, which was usually the emperor. This procession included music, mock fights, and animal displays. These animal displays included trained animals or stage hunts where 2 or more animals were released on each other or were killed by the bastari, which is a type of gladiator. Lunch break was normally devoted to executions of criminals who were usually found guilty of crimes such as murder, thievery, or arson. Different forms of executions included casting the men into the arena with vicious animals or making them fight each other till the death with no prior training. The afternoon consisted of the highlight of the day, which was the individual gladiatorial combats. These included different types of gladiators by armor, weapons. Over time, the gladiatorial games adopted certain rituals. For example, when a gladiator was wounded and wished to accept defeat, he would hold up one index finger, and the people would indicate whether they wanted him killed or spared. This is where the thumbs up, thumbs down rumor began. There's no evidence to find this true, but there is evidence of a different ritual. This ritual is the pulsum vertere, which is to turn the thumb in all directions, which meant to kill, and the pulsum primere, which is to press the thumb into their hands, which meant to spare. The final decision rests with the sponsor of the games. If death was the gladiator's fate, he was to accept death honorably and not to resist. Gladiators do have a chance to become free again. A gladiator must win 30 battles or perform a heroic act to gain their freedom. The sponsor is the one to grant the freedom. If he is granted with freedom, he is presented with a wooden sword called a radius. This is somewhat of a identification for the gladiator to use around town to show that he is a free man. Below you will see the sword that he would be presented with. Over time, there have been many famous gladiators that have come up in history. These famous gladiators included Triumphus, Precius, Flamma, or Emperor Commodus. The most famous gladiator that mostly everyone has heard of is Spartacus. He was a Thracian soldier that was captured, made into a slave, and then trained to be a gladiator. But he did not go down without a fight. He convinced 70 of his fellow gladiators to join him and rebel. They escaped and over time freed more slaves and trained somewhat of an army. In the end, they were all killed, but not without causing much trouble first. Over time, the motivations of these gladiatorial games have gone back and forth. Some believe they were just for entertainment, and some believe that they were for a political gain. In the resource, As the Romans Did, by J. Sheldon, it says, the Roman politicians of the Republican period, always from the upper class, promoted a system in which the presentation of entertainment became one method of currying favor and winning votes. In fact, the late Republican politician Cicero wrote that Roman people made their will known in 3 locations: public meetings, popular voting assemblies, and spectacles, which were the gladiatorial games. Today, I have told you about the history of the gladiatorial games and combat, who the Roman gladiators were, the game day events, and the possible motivations behind the games. I employed the Tolman method to help implement my claim that gladiatorial games played a very large role by bringing the population of Rome together as a whole society despite any motivations behind it. Even if it was put together only for political gain, it still became a staple of Roman society and entertainment that can be recognized. Even today, we link together Rome and gladiatorial games as part of their culture. Thank you for listening. Does anyone have any questions?